Howdy, this is Severely Zero, and I am the creator and developer of the Unofficial Phasmophobia cheat sheet. In this video, I'm going to be going over what the cheat sheet is, what makes it different from the in-game journal, and the useful features that it has to offer. This is going to be a long video, so if you are looking for a specific how-to or feature, check the description for a timestamp that you can jump to. Otherwise, here we go. The Zero Network Unofficial Phasmophobia cheat sheet is not created by nor affiliated with Kinetic Games, its developers, or partners. This service is created by an independent third party as an educational tool for the Phasmophobia community. No copyright infringement intended. Filters. Like the in-game journal, the cheat sheet allows you to mark evidence as found or not found. But unlike the in-game journal, the cheat sheet is mindful of forced evidences, nightmare and insanity logic, meaning any game that has one or two evidences hidden, and additional filtering based on speed and the sanity at which a ghost hunts. To start, the evidence section works similarly to the in-game journal. Clicking on an evidence once will mark the evidence as found, clicking on an evidence twice will mark it as not found, and then clicking it a third time will mark it back to neutral. As you filter, ghost cards will be removed from the screen, allowing for an easy view of what is left so that you can only see the data that you need to. Another nice feature is that it will lock certain evidences, meaning that you no longer have to look for those evidences since none of the remaining ghosts will have it. For example, EMF5 and Writing will lock dots and ghost orbs because Spirit, Shade, and Myling do not have those two evidences, so while you're playing a game, you don't need to worry about looking for those. Unlike the in-game journal, the cheat sheet does respect ghost orbs as an evidence for the mimic. In the in-game journal, if you select ultraviolet and ghost orbs as evidence, it won't show the mimic. However, on the cheat sheet, it will, just as a reminder that the mimic does have 4 evidences. Below the evidence filter, you have a speed filter. This filter allows you to filter down ghosts based on the speed at which they hunt. If it sounds normal, or 1.7 meters per second, you can select normal. If it's slower than that, it'll show the ghosts that are slower, and likewise if you select fast, it'll show the ones that are faster. It also shows a line of sight filter. If you are being hunted and notice that the ghost speeds up gradually while it is able to see you, select this checkbox to show ghosts that are able to do that. If the ghost does not speed up gradually, double click it to cross it out and it'll show ghosts that do not have a line of sight speed up. The Hunt Sanity filter. This allows you to filter ghosts based on the average sanity of your team when the ghost hunted. It is fairly self-explanatory. You select the one that shows it, and this will show any ghosts that hunted at that range. Another nice feature is the difficulty or the number of evidence. This can be set to 3 evidences, 2 evidences, 1 evidence, or 0 evidence. One of the previously mentioned features is that the cheat sheet is mindful of forced evidence and nightmare and insanity logic. In the in-game journal, you cannot cross out an evidence while doing nightmare or insanity mode, since it will cross out all ghosts with that evidence, even if the ghost is just hiding it and it is that ghost. The cheat sheet recognizes that, and won't hide a ghost until the combination of evidence ensures that it cannot be that ghost. For example, if we set it to nightmare or 2 evidence, and we say it's not ultraviolet, we can still see that there are ultraviolet ghosts here in the ghost cards. This is because that ghost might be hiding just that evidence. Let's take Phantom for example, however. Because it could be hiding ultraviolet, it could still show Spirit Box and dots. But if we say it's not ultraviolet and not dots, Phantom is removed because one of those must have been shown for that ghost. This is nightmare logic. The same is applied to insanity logic when you're doing 1 evidence. Now, the exception to this is forced evidences. Some ghosts have an evidence that they must show if your evidence is set to 1, 2, or 3 evidences. For example, the Obake has a forced evidence of ultraviolet. So in nightmare mode, if we say it is not ultraviolet, The obake gets removed because it must have been able to show that. Otherwise, it cannot be that ghost. Finally, there is a monkey paw icon next to each evidence. In-game, this will cross out an evidence and any ghost with that evidence. This button does the same thing. Regardless of your number of evidence, marking an evidence with a monkey paw will cross out that evidence and remove any ghosts that had that as an evidence as well. Ghost cards. On the right side of the screen, we see a card for each ghost that is in-game. These cards contain a ton of information for each ghost and are very useful for figuring out the ghost based on behavior rather than evidence. Each card contains the name of the ghost, the evidence for that ghost, the sanity at which that ghost can hunt normally, but be sure to check the behavior box we'll get to because there are exceptions to this number, the speed at which the ghost hunts, and the behavior or tells for that particular ghost. Every ghost has a different list of behaviors and tells, and these should be used for helping determine what the ghost is when evidence is not being given. The card also has buttons on the right side that allow you to better manage the ghosts that are remaining. In its basic form, you have a check mark and an X. Clicking the check mark will highlight a ghost as green, meaning that it is selected. Only one ghost can be selected as green at a time. The second is this X. Clicking this will fade the ghost, meaning you don't think it's this ghost, and you don't want it to be as visible when you do a quick glance at the screen. Double-clicking this X will cause the ghost card to disappear completely, removing it entirely. This is intended to be used in situations with Wraith, where if it walks through salt and you see the footsteps in the salt, then it cannot be a Wraith, and you can remove it entirely, so it doesn't confuse you later in the game. If at any point you want to see the ghost that you've removed, go down here to the bottom of the screen, and there is an eye icon that you can click on that will bring those ghosts back as faded. Timers. In the Tools tab, there's a section for timers. The cheat sheet offers two timers. A smudge timer for timing when a ghost can hunt again after incensing or smudging the ghost, and a cooldown timer for timing the time between hunts and or crucifix uses if no incense or smudge was used. Both timers have additional marks on them to show when different ghosts can begin different actions. The smudge timer, for example, has lines and audio cues for demon, standard, and spirit. These timers have hotkeys that allow them to be started and stopped with the hit of a button, T for the smudge timer, and H for the cooldown timer. It should be noted that these hotkeys only work while you're focused on the browser. They do not work in-game. If you do want hotkeys that work in-game, see the section of the video regarding the ZN desktop link. Finally, the timers have audio cues to let you know what timer is ending and when, and also when the timer starts and stops. This way you can know when a timer is up without having to leave or look away from the game. When a timer is about to approach one of those lines, it will talk to you and tell you which timer it is.
Demon cooldown ending in 3, 2, 1. Standard cooldown ending in 3, 2, 1.
Footsteps and the BPM finder. This is easily the most popular feature of the cheat sheet and what gained it its popularity. Next to the speed listed on the ghost card for each ghost, there is a speaker icon. Clicking on this will give you an example of what that ghost sounds like when hunting. Which for a spirit, this is 1.7 meters per second. And for a revenant that knows where you are, this is 3 meters per second. Or for a slow twin. These can be super useful when trying to compare what you hear in-game. But over here in the tools, you'll see a setting called Ghost Speed. This allows you to set what the ghost speed is in game. For example, if you're attempting to do the Gold Apocalypse challenge, that means that the ghost must be at 150% speed. There are a lot of videos out there that go over the speeds of Ghost, but none of them really go over what the speed is at any of these altered speeds. This website actually dynamically creates the sounds you hear so that you can change it to whatever you need to be able to compare it. So if you are doing the Apocalypse Challenge and you have it set to 150, you can now hear what a spirit sounds like at that speed. And you can tell already that it's much faster. Or if you want to hear how hilarious a Moroi sounds when it's at its absolute fastest, you can do that too. You also have the option to change between footstep sounds and metronome ticks, in case you find one easier to hear if you are doing an audio lineup. Now, this is only half of this feature. The other half is called the BPM Finder. Sometimes it's hard to be able to hear two different sounds and see if they line up. So we've added a feature that allows you to tap every footstep that you hear during a hunt, and it will tell you what BPM you're tapping and what the speed is likely to be. So for example, at 100% speed, let's get a baseline. I can tap that, either tapping the button or pressing F. So tap, 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 tap. And as I tap, you can see that it's starting to draw a line on the graph below it, and it's starting to highlight ghosts as well. Now, you want to get a bunch of taps in for a good amount of data so it's more accurate. Now, let's explain everything that just happened. As you tap, it will calculate the speed at which the ghost is at for the one you have selected. This works at 150 speed as well, or at 50, 75, or 125. This graph shows a history of what you tapped. This can be extremely useful if you have ghosts with line of sight, or if you have a Raiju that's causing it to have flat spots at 2.5 meters per second. And the best way to read the graph is to go to the guides section, go to hunts, and then look at speed and line of sight. And this is a comprehensive guide that will go over how to read the graph and different patterns that different ghosts will show on that graph. The other thing it does is you'll see a bunch of ghosts that are highlighted and some that are partially highlighted. So as you're tapping, if the speed you're tapping matches the base speed of a ghost, so in this instance we were at 1.68, which is fairly close to a 1.7, all the ghosts that are 1.7 are going to highlight completely. Now, some ghosts do have that line of sight speed up, meaning that what you're tapping could be the speed that a ghost is as it's speeding up. This is also explained in the same section of the guides, but if it's a line of sight, it's going to highlight just the left side of the card. In addition to this, some ghosts have ranges of speeds. For example, Moroi has a range of speeds. It can be anywhere from 1.5 to 2.25, and the Thay can be anywhere from 1 to 2.75. There is also a section in the guides, also located in hunts, and you can see this with this trail of footsteps that it's wanting you to go look. So any ghost that has a range is corresponded to one of these tables, and it will highlight rows in these tables based on what you saw. So if we typed in the 1.7, it's saying this could be close to a Hantu that's between 12 and 15 degrees Celsius. This could be a Moroi that's hunting between 30 to 40% average sanity, or it could also be a Thay that's been aged about 5 to 12 minutes. And you can continue to narrow it down based on that sort of data. General settings. Now with so many moving parts and dynamic features, we had to add settings so that players could have control of how the cheat sheet worked for them. So on the right side of the main bar on the left, you'll see a bunch of tabs. The top one is settings. In here, you have a volume that will change how loud the timers are and how loud the footsteps are. So for example, so you can hear it, this is 50, this is 100, and that's 0. Now, there's also 2 additional checkboxes. You can mute the timer countdowns, which is the standard ghost ending in 3, 2, 1. You can mute that, and you can mute the timer toggle, which is the boo-doop, doo-doop when you start and stop timers. So if I hit that and then hit this, you don't hear the sounds anymore. But if it's unmuted, you can hear them. Now, the next setting, and this is a super important one. So I'm going to read it directly from the information page. Graphics settings and GPU/CPU load will impact the speed of footstep sounds in-game. What you hear in-game may differ and not match exactly what is heard on this guide. You can adjust the speed offset in settings to more accurately align the footstep sounds to what you hear in-game. What does this mean? So if you have a potato that you're running the game on, the chances are that the footstep sounds are going to be slower than what you hear on the cheat sheet. And if that's the case, you can use the speed offset to slow down the cheat sheet to match what you hear in game. On the opposite end, if you're running a NASA supercomputer to play this game, chances are you're running it without any hindrance, and the sounds may actually be faster in game than what you hear on the cheat sheet. In that case, you can set the speed offset up. For my computer, it's a little bit more potato, so I usually play it at -2 or -1 offset. The easiest way to set this is to go in-game and get the cadence of the 1.7 meters per second ghost as it's hunting, and then as you're tapping, just adjust the speed offset until what you're tapping matches 1.7, and this should set it for all the ghosts. The next filter is the speed filter logic. So when you are using the speed filter, it is defaulted to OR, so a ghost that is slow or normal, or a ghost that is slow or fast. If you change this, it changes the logic to AND logic, so ghost must be slow and normal, or the ghost must be slow and fast. The last setting that you can change is the BPM to MS. What this does is it changes how the BPM finder calculates your meters per second from what you're tapping. If it's exact, it will show the exact number that you're tapping. So I am tapping a 1.78, 1.75, 1.9, and it's a very exact number. This setting is needed for the BPM finder graph. If you have it on rounded, it won't work. However, you can set it to rounded, and what it'll do is it will attempt to round it to the nearest number that it is, so that you're not confused by some of the jitter. So now I can tap and see it's only jumping to speeds that a ghost can be at. So I may actually be tapping a 171 or a 172, but because it's closest to 1.7, it's going to show that instead. And if I change it back to exact, you can see I was actually tapping a 1.75. This is going to be purely based on how you play, how comfortable you are, and what sort of data that you like to see. Voice commands. One of the features of the Unofficial Phasmophobia cheat sheet is to be able to control the cheat sheet while you're in-game by using your voice. In order to enable this, you'll go to the Settings tab and go down here to Voice Commands and hit Enable. If it's your first time enabling the voice commands, it should pop up with a pop-up asking you to permit the cheat sheet to use your microphone. You will want to allow this and then make sure that your microphone is set to the one that you're using. Now, when you hit enable, you'll notice 2 things appear on screen. The first is this microphone that's on the settings tab that changes colors, and the second is this little ghost down here named Domo. Now, some browsers don't allow for the API that we use. If that is the case, it'll say that it's not available. From what we know, voice commands only work in Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, and Apple Safari. If you are using any other browser, voice commands may not work. Underneath the voice commands is a link called Commands and Info. This will open up a new small window that'll tell you what voice commands are available that the system will recognize. These can allow you to control the evidence that is marked or not marked, the speeds, the hunt sanity, marking ghosts, starting and stopping timers, and other miscellaneous things related to showing filters, showing maps, and the like. So for example, we can mark an evidence by saying evidence and then the name of the evidence. We can mark it as not an evidence by saying evidence not and then the name of the evidence. And then we can say evidence clear. The same thing goes for the ghosts, using the same sort of structure for the command. Now, in order for commands to work well, you may need to make sure that you speak clearly and articulate your words, and also pay attention to the color of the microphone if you can. If the microphone is white, it means it is ready to start accepting a voice command. If the microphone is blue, that means it is already listening to something. If it turns red, it means it didn't recognize what you said. And if it turns green, it means it's a recognized command. If the command is recognized, Domo will pop up a little speech bubble saying what he marked so that you can make sure that what it heard was correct. So let's show you this. Evidence EMF5. Evidence not dots. Ghost not Jin. Ghost select Myling. And as you can see, I can use my voice to control the cheat sheet in its entirety. Show map Bleasdale. Close map. So there's a lot of power to the voice commands. And when you're done, you can go back to settings and hit disable and it will stop them, or you can simply say stop listening and it will turn off. The shared journal link. Another feature of this is we want to promote people playing together. When you're playing with a huge group of people, it can always be confusing if someone found an evidence and no one else knew about it. So in an attempt to help that, we've given you the opportunity to link multiple of these cheat sheets together. To do so, one person goes to settings, goes down to the shared journal link, and hits create. This will create a new link that they can give to up to 3 other friends to link their cheat sheets. They'll want to take the code that's here, and the friend will want to go to settings, type in that code, and hit join. If this works, you should see how many people are connected. This one says status connected 2 of 4. And you should see a green bar appear here on the tab. Now what this does is it syncs the 2 journals. So if one person finds writing and marks it, it'll mark it for both. And if the other person is convinced that it's not Spirit Box, it'll mark the same. And then you can mark the ghost as correct, hide the ghost, so on and so forth. All commands are shared. And if one person resets the journal, it will reset it for everyone. Now, if you would like to leave the room, you simply go down to the shared journal link in the settings and hit disconnect. It'll say not connected, the bar should disappear, and you're now disconnected and able to do your own stuff. The ZN desktop link. One of the things that we've alluded to a lot in this video is that you can't control the cheat sheet while you're in-game. For the security of the browser, to avoid keyloggers and such, you can't use hotkeys while you're not focused in the browser, which means in a lot of cases you have to Alt-Tab out of your game to be able to go to the browser, which for a game like Phasmophobia doesn't work well if you're wanting to tap out the speed of a ghost. So we have created an additional piece of software that you can download that will allow you to have those hotkeys while you're in game. So to use the ZN desktop link, you go to the settings tab, you go all the way down here to the bottom where it says desktop link. You can download the software by hitting this download button, and it will download the ZN desktop link installer version 2. Whatever the current version is. Run that, and it will install an application on your computer. And once it's installed, you can start it, and it'll look something like this. Unofficial Phasmo cheat sheet desktop link, copyright 2023, Tybane, Zero Network. Hit start, and it'll ask for link ID. To get this, in the settings, desktop link, you hit create, copy the ID that it's given you, and it'll say awaiting desktop link. Paste that in here, and hit connect. If it works, you should see this appear, and if you have the overlay on, the overlay will appear as well. This application gives you access to a ton of in-game hotkeys that you can use to control the cheat sheet. For example, the default for menu flipping is the tick mark, and what this does is it switches between tools and filters. And then I can also start timers with hotkeys, stop them with hotkeys, and the one that's super popular is the ability to tap with the BPM finder using a hotkey. So if you're in game and the ghost is actively chasing you, or you're hiding and you really don't want to tab out because it could be dangerous, you can be tapping the key for that, and it'll start recommending ghosts. And you can see the number updating on both the website and on the overlay. Now it should be noted that after 5 seconds, if you haven't tapped, the next time you tap, it'll reset. So you don't even have to worry about resetting it in between hunts. Now, there are additional hotkeys for evidences, but the other big thing is overlays, so you can see this data while you're in game. The first is the standard overlay, which is up here on the left, that shows the smudge timer that you have remaining, the cooldown timer that you have remaining, the BPM that you tapped, and the speed that it corresponds to. In the title of the BPM, you'll see this number. If you change the ghost speed, it will also change that number. The number of dots on the left indicates how many evidences are showing. And then you also have all of your standard evidences. So if I use the hotkey to mark off EMF, you can see that it marks it off on the cheat sheet as well as on the overlay. And it's fairly easy to read. And if you get down to the point where there's one ghost left, it'll mark that as well. The other overlay that's available on this software is the ghost overlay. And this simply lists the ghosts in the same way that they're listed in the journal. So if you have a ghost selected, it'll highlight it in green. That way you can just go into your journal, it's in the same place, and you mark it. As you're tapping the BPM, on the cheat sheet it highlights them in a full yellow. On the overlay, it'll only show the ones that are matching to the base speed, but it'll put dots next to them. And if you want to stop the overlay, you can close these. Another nice feature is the settings, where you can change the opacity of the overlay. You can also have it have a transparent background so that there's no black behind it, and you can choose the different colors. It also can be stream friendly. If it is not stream friendly, then the only thing visible in the taskbar is this piece. But if it's stream friendly, it reopens both of them, and you can see all the different overlays here so that you can find them when you're in OBS. And to disconnect, you can either disconnect from the ZN desktop link or disconnect from here, and it will kill that connection and you can exit. The Discord link and My Stats viewer. One thing that a lot of players like is to be able to record which ghosts they've seen, how frequently they've seen them, which ghosts they've got wrong, and other similar data. We allow the player to do this on the Phasmophobia cheat sheet by using a Discord link. To get that started, you go here to the Discord link and you hit link. This will take you to an authorization page saying that the Zero Network wants to access your Discord account. The only thing that we need is your username and avatar, and then it also gives us your Discord ID. This way we can associate your data with you. So hit authorize, and if it worked, you should notice a couple of things. The first is that the Discord link now has a green bar. The second is that you now have more options on each ghost card. And the third is that this button now says save and reset instead of just reset. So now that it's linked, you can get a brief view of the total number of games you've played on which difficulties, how many of each ghost you've seen, and then a quick explanation of what these new icons mean, as well as a link to My Stats Explorer, which we'll explore in a second. So now, when you play a game, you play along, you do what you need to, and then you can select a ghost. This will mark the ghost as correct and selected. You can guess a ghost. So this is intended to be like, I think it's a shade. You mark it in your journal, and then you leave the match. And then on the summary screen in-game, it'll tell you what the ghost actually was. And you mark that one as green. This way, you can see in your statistics which ghosts you guess more often and what they actually end up being. So you can start to see patterns of, oh, I really thought that this was a spirit, but it ended up being a mare, and I see that multiple times. If you do end up getting the ghost correctly, you just simply mark it as correct, and you don't mark one as guessed, and the system will recognize that you guessed this one and got it correct. Marking things as not is about the same as it was before, but the final one we have is the skull. This skull marks the ghost as correct and indicates that you died to it. So I can guess that it was a shade, and then it was actually a djinn, but I died to it, and then it saves. When you hit save and reset, all this data gets saved and associated with your Discord ID, and then you can view that data later. Now, because the Discord link is meant for storing statistics, we really do push you to make sure you have something selected. If you hover over save and reset and you have nothing selected, it'll say that no ghost is selected, and if you click it once, nothing will happen. You can double click to save and reset, but it'll give you an empty entry. So it's best that you select something and then hit save and reset. Now, the final thing is the My Stats Explorer. Clicking this will open a new page that'll allow you to explore all of your games. So you have overall stats, you can see which ghosts you see the most, which ones you've seen the most recently. So for example, in the past week, I've seen more banshees than any other ghost, but overall I've seen a lot more revenants than any other ghost. You can break it down by ghost speed modifier, number of evidences. On page 2, you can see how many deaths you've had. So I die to Wraith a lot, and I've never died to a Diogen. This week I've died to Banshee and no other ghosts. And then you can also see which ones you get correct. So based on this, I get poltergeists right most of the time, but I don't do well with Onryos, and I've gotten 19 incorrect. You can also do additional filtering, select the number of evidences, the ghost speed modifier, the category, or the speed category, the sanity category, and the evidences that were used to find that ghost. And then you can just explore your data. And that's the Discord link. Other features. So everything else that we've shown has been pretty big features of the Phasmo cheat sheet. Now, there are a few more features that I just want to briefly touch on, and we'll just categorize them all together. So if we continue down our tabs, we have a current event tab. Myself and our translators do our best to make sure that this tab is updated within just a couple hours of any in-game event dropping. This event tab is meant to show a walkthrough of how to complete the event. We make sure that it is as spoiler friendly as possible by making sure that all images or locations or anything have spoilers. We also will post videos in here if we believe that it will be most helpful, and then we'll also give spoiler for stuff that you can earn. So in this case, because the event is nearly over, if you click on it, you can see what it is that's underneath the spoiler tag. And this will be updated automatically. The next tab is the guides. This is a huge collection of data that we've handwritten to make sure that you know how to do things in game the best as possible. So each one of these will give a breakdown. So we have additional ghost data, which for now talks about Obake fingerprints with examples of each of those. We have hunts, which breaks down a lot. You can see examples of the ghost flickers. You can see ghost speed breakdowns and be able to hear examples of each of those. Ghost ranges and speed and line of sight for reading the BPM graph, along with monkey paw, Ouija board, spirit box, tarot cards, and then the current most efficient grinding method for gaining XP if you're looking to prestige quickly. The next one is maps. The Zero Network is partnered with Phantismal. She is the person who makes these wonderful maps if you've not seen them before. And they give you a great layout to show you where room boundaries begin and end, what the different room names are according to both the Ouija board and the sound sensors, and then also the location of any of the cameras that are already built into the maps, where the fuse box is, where the cursed objects are, and where the keys are. If you hover over the map, it will zoom in, and you can move your mouse to see things around it. This is not as needed for the small maps like Tanglewood, but you can see we have a list of all the maps down here. So if we click Sunny Meadows, it's pretty small. That zoom in becomes super handy. Now, we make sure that these maps are as up to date as possible, and we've also indicated what size these maps are. So High School and Sunny Meadows are large, Prison and Maple Lodge are medium, and the rest are small. If you want to see the raw images, you can go here to the link where it says that these belong to Phantismal, and you can see where those are. The other feature this has is a news feed. Now, this news feed only appears on the English translation of the website, and this just gives news about events that are coming up, and then also any releases to the desktop link or major changes to the website that we think people should be that they should know about. It shows the latest 10, and then if you're in here, you can like or dislike an update. And at the bottom, if you want to donate to our efforts, we do have a coffee. If a new feed is available, you'll see this globe icon with a red dot. The next tab is the language selection. Currently, we have the website translated in English, French, German, Polish, Russian, and Turkish, with more on the way. And you can simply click on that, and it'll take you to the translated site. And the last thing is our Discord. If you would like to join our Discord and make suggestions or get updates or sneak peeks on the new things coming with the cheat sheet, make sure to click here and join us on the Zero Network Ghost Hunters Discord server. Hopefully this guide was helpful for you and that you were able to learn how to use the cheat sheet more effectively and everything that it can offer you while you're playing Phasmophobia. Thanks guys, see you next time.